Welcome to the Coast Podcast. I'm Emily, a virtual assistant agency owner who left Amazon in 2019 to build my dream.
And I'm Whitney, a freelance writer and communications consultant who never felt at home in a cube farm.
We wanted to learn from people who paved their own ways like we did. So we created this podcast to talk to others who are brave enough to pick a different path. Creatives, entrepreneurs, people doing their careers and their lives their way.
Join us as we make new friends, get inspired, and show you beautiful paths less traveled.
Not every road leads to the coast, but the ones that do come with a great view.
All right. Are we recording? We're trying a new system.
We're recording.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Coast. My name is Whitney Popa, and I own a communications consultancy in Edmonds, Washington.
And my name's Emily Given. I own a virtual assistant agency in Lynnwood, Washington. And today we have Karina Baldwin on the Coast. She is a mental performance coach. She has a master's in sport and performance psychology, and she's the CEO of True Adventure Collective. Karina, thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be on here and chatting with you guys today. So yeah, I'm excited.
I'm super excited you're here too. We're laughing at ourselves because Whitney and I got new headsets. I don't know if you guys can hear the quality, but there's like a mute button that I've like pinned to my chest, and Whitney's laughing at me because I keep like muting myself.
Well, then I watched Emily do that, and then I did it, and I pinned it to my chest. It makes me feel very special, like those people who have the portable microphones and make YouTube videos. So maybe we have a future.
Yes.
You guys are now professionals. You have
Yes.
professional headsets, and I love it.
I love it.
Correct. We had more professional setups before, and my husband actually informed me as this thing was tripping out and ruining all my streaming things this morning as I was testing it. He's like, I was like, I think the ports on my computer are messed up or whatever. And he was like, maybe you just need to restart. Isn't it so annoying how they always know those things? He was like, try a restart. And I was like, it's been acting like this for months. And he was like, how long's it been since you restarted? It might just be a firmware thing. I don't know what firmware is.
I thought there was just
But it
hardware and
fixed it.
software. And now there's firmware.
What's firm? I want jigglyware.
Yeah, we'll have to invite him on to explain what firmware is. Among other things. He'll be like, it's in my pants.
Ew, Roz, we hate you. Just kidding, we love you.
Incredible.
Karina, tell us about True Adventure Collective and what you do. We want to hear it in your own words.
So I'm a mental performance coach, and basically what that means, a lot of people have heard of it in ways of sport. So a lot of people have heard of sports psychologists, and so we basically just work on the mental side of being competitive. And in business, that really shows up in team work and team orientation and leadership. And I treat and coach a lot of my clients who are female CEOs. Those are my clients. I work with them the same way that I would work with a head coach or a top athlete. I train them in the same way. We really focus on the mental side of things. And although they're not, trying to run the fastest sprint or, increase their free throw percentage, but they are trying to increase their sales or increase their conversion rate, or they are trying to make whatever their revenue is double faster each time, right? So like everyone has their own performance. And a performance is just simply defined as there is a clear start, there is a clear end, and you care about how the results are end. And so, especially in the business world, we have very clear performances. Anything from a sales call to a podcast, this is a performance. We care about how this works. There's a clear start, clear end. And like ideally, this helps all three of our businesses grow. We care about the results in that way, right? So that's where the mental skills side, my side, where sport and performance comes in, is I teach CEOs how to handle and manage their stress, their anxiety, their thoughts, their emotions, and everything in between. Because the more that we're able to regulate ourselves, the better we're able to show up for the people surrounding us. And that's not just our clients, but that's our employees, that's our family, our friends, and, just strangers on the street even. You're going to show up in a better mood if you leave client interactions with a more positive mindset, and you're going to be able to like walk through Target and not make a stink eye at the person, coming the other way kind of thing. So mental performance coaching really focuses on helping you manage your emotions and your thoughts and your stress and into a more sustainable and like mentally enduring way throughout life, rather than constant in a cycle of like burnout or stress or crashing in any way, whatever that means to you. Yeah.
I already have so many questions.
Yeah, I was like watching your finger hover over the button. I was like, which one's go first? You go first, Emily, because I have a lot of questions too.
Okay, so did you always know you're going to coach executives, or did you have an intention on coaching athletes at one point?
I 100% had an intention on coaching athletes. So I started, I actually didn't know my field existed until after I was like 3 months from graduating my undergrad. And I was applying for grad school because I had an undergrad in psychology. And unless I wanted to be a school counselor, which I didn't, you couldn't really professionally do a whole lot. And there's just a lot of limitations because you just have to continue in the psychology field, like continuing education. So I was like, all right, going to get my master's. And originally I thought I was going to go clinical psych. And then I was applying in the state of Florida, which is where I'm originally from. I was applying to a bunch of colleges there, and Florida State University had a psychology program or psychology like section. And they were like, these are the psychology programs. And you like check the box of the one that you're applying to, right? And underneath the clinical psych was sports psych. And I was like, I like sports. I was like, I was an athlete. And I honestly kind of stumbled into the field. I started doing a little bit more research like as I was going through the application process. And I was like, when I was an athlete, I would have needed someone like me to help me love my sport and love myself in my sport, because I started to have a really unhealthy relationship with my body and with food while I was in my sport. And it ultimately ended my career, my college athletics career early. And I knew that if I had someone like me now, like with my education, I probably would have either caught those unhealthy habits a lot earlier, would have been able to stop them, and would have been able to continue my sport like throughout my college career. But so I kind of stumbled into it, found more research, ended up applying to the program, obviously got in and got my master's working with Florida State athletes while I was in my master's program. And that was my intention. Actually, back in grad school, if you'd asked me what I thought I was going to be doing by the time I'm 28 now, by the time I was 28, I would have said that I would be working with the MLB, which is one of the like higher numbers as far as mental performance coaches in the sport world. NFL doesn't love us. They haven't decided to spend their money with us yet, but the MLB does. They hire mental performance coaches for each of their teams, whereas NFL players and NHL players have to individually hire us. So the league isn't quite yet there like how the MLB is. But yeah, so I originally wanted to work with athletes, and along the way made the realization that female CEOs honestly are just as badass, if not more badass in than the athlete world even. So that's how I got here.
Okay, so many things. One of my best friends from my sorority, her daughter is an elite gymnast, and she was just texting us a couple weeks ago about having her work with a psychologist, and it was similar to what you said of having her like love her sport and herself within it, because she's so hard on herself. She's going into 8th grade, and her dream, I think, is UCLA gymnast.
Yeah.
And so she's really working towards that. And even with her, even though there's a lot less taboo-ness, I mean, maybe they are in Idaho, I don't know, there is a lot of
There's still stigma.
yeah,
Absolutely.
a lot of stigma around having somebody help you with your brain, especially when you're young. And so somebody like you having like being able to help navigate those kinds of conversations, especially for young kids who probably will become, her mom is a business owner, she probably will become a business owner. I think those things are intricately connected
Yeah.
too. Of, I wasn't ever an elite athlete, but I love a 30 for 30. I love, like, Remember the Titans. I'm very into sports type
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and that connection is very direct,
Yeah.
in my opinion, even though it seems like it's not to other people. Like, before we jumped on here, I was watching the Robin Sharma video where I just finished one of his books, The Everyday Hero Manifesto, and I bought his course because I wanted to stay in his energy, and it was only $77, plug for that,
A
because
steal.
you don't need to read the book. I mean, he says he's going way deeper. He's not going that much deeper yet beyond the book. But the point is, in this module that I'm watching now, he's talking all about how we should all, as business owners, be at an athletic
Yeah.
level of an elite
Yes.
athlete for so many reasons,
Yes.
and why that puts everything together. And he's building this trifecta of you and your elite athleticness at the top, and then everything that trickles down from that. So, in my long-winded way, I would love for you to speak to that, because I know you're talking about the mental part, but it is so connected to body as well. He was talking about how at the top there's you and your elite athleticism, basically, and how
Mm-hmm.
everything else is better when you are at peak in your body,
Yeah.
because your mental performance is so connected to your vessel. Do you talk about that with people too? I know you're focused on mental, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't be unhealthy
Oh, yeah.
and be at peak mental performance.
Absolutely. So, yes. And I love that you incorporated like the physical body, because I actually, how I kind of got back into how my business actually started originally. So I was doing mental performance coaching with the US Army. That was my like 9 to 5. And then I got my yoga teacher certification and was like, I'm going to leave coaching and just do yoga and run yoga retreats. And then I started to see myself do coaching on these retreats, and that's how like mental performance coaching ended up coming back. And I just realized it was a population I was working with, not the actual work itself. And now I incorporate yoga and the mental side. So, like, really enhancing the mind body connection, because just like you said, like, you cannot have a healthy, clear, focused, attentive mind without having your body in a good place. One of the main sources of confidence within the human psyche is the physical state. So, like, how does your body physically feel? Like, when you're feeling sick, you're not going to show up and be confident in whatever you're going to do, right? And that's a very extreme example. But if you like literally have food poisoning, you are not going to nail that client interview. Like, it's going to be a terrible experience, and you're not going to feel confident because you're going to be constantly in the back of your head, like, am I going to run to the bathroom in the middle of this, right? Very extreme example, but it goes for anything that if your body feels overly jittery, if your body feels overly lethargic or fatigued, it's not going to be in its most heightened state, ready to go for whatever business needs to get done. And it doesn't even have to be like super high risk meetings like clients or sales or that kind of thing. Even just writing social media posts, if your brain's not clear, you're not going to be able to convey whatever message that you're trying to convey via a social media post or an email marketing, like things that are like quote unquote behind the scenes and can take you, if you want to take 20 hours, you can, right? There's no time limit on something like that. But I really incorporate how the physical body plays a role in it, and using not just top down processing, meaning from brain to body, but bottom up processing. So, like, from physical form up to your brain, because there are times when your physical form is reacting to your environment faster than your brain can actually process it. And that's what the like bottom up processing is. And so I'll take clients through and I'll literally have them sometimes identify where they're feeling their emotion or their thought in their physical body. I'll literally have them close their eyes. You know, they'll have some kind of, I know one of a big thought that I just took a client through was that she can't ask for help. And she believed that like she had to figure out how to scale her business on her own. She was like deciding whether or not she should hire like a mentor and someone who's already done it. And I had her like close her eyes and where did she feel it in her body? And asking that helps you understand how it's showing up in your physical form and also let you kind of release it with intention, right? So instead of just being unaware of where these emotions, these thoughts lie in your body, it is very important for you to acknowledge, because in order to tame something, I always say like in order to tame it, you have to name it. And so like you have to name where it is, you have to name how it feels. Does it have a color? Does it have a temperature? Does it have a whatever in your body? And like label it, name it. So give it an emotion. Like it's not just anger, it is anxiety or frustration or like curiosity. Like just, you have to figure out the degree, because so many of us, even when we ask emotions, we're like happy, sad, angry, done. Like those are the things that we say. And we need to get so much more in depth with that. Like, what does anxious actually mean? What does stressed actually mean? What does happy actually mean? Is it like exuberant happy, or is it like contentment? There's a very big difference, right? And you can feel all those things in your body. And it's so important to begin to label them, because what that does in the future is it makes your mind super clear on how to create those feelings or stop those feelings in the future. So anytime that you're feeling that like overjoyous excitement, how can we create? You got to find it in your body. And then you can literally in the future recreate that, like from the actions that you did to create that feeling to literally feeling it inside your physical form, have that being replicated, because we do want to fill our lives with more of that, like excitement and joy and happy and content and grateful and those kinds of things. But we got to feel where it is in the body in order for us to repeat it.
Okay, so do you go after you name the emotion, like where you feel it in your body? Do you go deeper than that into like if it's a negative emotion, like where's that coming from? Like, is that
Mm-hmm.
some sort of trauma that you've experienced? Because I'm like, I love trauma. Talk to me about trauma.
Yeah.
So like, I'm just wondering how far in depth you go,
Mm-hmm.
like into those layers, because there's a difference between like stopping the feeling, right? Stopping the
Yeah.
negative emotion and really uncovering where it's coming from and how to get past that deeper level.
Right. Yeah. So there's a really important discernment between mental performance coach and like a psychologist. So I'm not a psychologist. I have a master's in sport and performance psychology. Psychologists and sports psychologists have a master's in sport and performance psychology and then a PhD in clinical psychology. So actually, sport psychologists don't have any more training than myself in sport and performance psychology. They just continue their education into essentially the DSM, which is like the mental health Bible, basically. And so they focus a lot more on the like disordered side of things, where they look back on a lot of trauma. Mental performance coaches look a lot more to the future, but we do want to unblock some of the mindset traumas that have happened, but we don't necessarily focus a ton of time on previous trauma. We look to see how we can kind of unblock that trauma for the future rather than fix the trauma of the past, if that makes sense. So that's what I firmly believe, that every client that I work with, I always encourage them to also go to therapy. It's just different. We are there for different roles. I am a forward thinking mindset when we meet with them, and their therapist looks back and sees patterns. But that doesn't mean we don't overlap, right? So mental performance coaching, what I do, one of my biggest questions that I ask my clients all the time as far as the quote unquote negative emotions. Really, I don't like the word negative. I like counterproductive, because in order for us to appreciate the happy, content, grateful, we have to be able to feel the sadness and the anger and the stress. Otherwise, we're not human, right? The whole part of the human experience is the entire spectrum of emotions. And in reality, we should feel like stints of even something as extreme as depression to short extents. Should it be months long? No, that's where you need to go for mental health. And you need to seek out actual mental health help. But we need to be able to feel those things in order to acknowledge the like good as well. And so I always like to say like counterproductive, like, is it productive for you in this moment to feel stressed? And when it comes to running a business, likely not. But there are times where stress is incredibly productive, where it helps you. It's like, oh, I have like an unexpected, really quick 48-hour turnaround deadline. That stress, if it's channeled properly, can get you to focus and get it done in that 48-hour period. That's a productive emotion rather than a negative or a positive. But one of the big questions that I always ask my clients about the emotion is, often I turn back to the thought, because that's where we actually have control, is our thoughts. Our emotions come from our thoughts, and it's a little bit more of a like A plus B, like A causes B type thing. And so we need to look at A, like the causation, which is where our thoughts are. And so I ask them, like, what are you making it mean that this thought is true? What are you making it mean that you can't sign another client? What are you making it mean that you're not going to hit a 5K month this month? Like, what are you making it mean about you? And that's where you start to like kind of like Emily, where you're saying peel back those layers of they're believing, I go back to that client that I was just working with about how she can't ask for help. And I like asked her, what are you making it mean if you ask for help? And her next thought was that I can't do it on my own, that I can't do it by myself. And so we just dive deeper. And I'm like, okay, you can't do it by yourself. Like, what does that mean to you? And so just like diving deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to that root cause. And if you don't like the thought, what that root is, that's where we can begin to undermine that root in order to have a more productive thought in the future. And eventually it's always easy when it's not you, right? It's always so much easier when you're a third party. And I saw very clearly, I've witnessed her reach out for help in other ways. She had earlier talked about her boyfriend has allowed her to kind of step more into feminine energy. And she's like, yeah, I let him like carry my duffel bags. And she's like, I would have never let a previous partner like do that. She would be like a carry all the groceries type of gal. And like, she was a softball player in college and like big driver when it comes to motivation and whatnot. And now this partner, he asks like, can I help you? And she like lets him, when she doesn't need it, she just lets him because she's like, yeah, it's nice. And I'm like, okay, you do this in your personal life. Now let's change it to your business as well. Like, who's to say that you can't do it? And so eventually, obviously, you can't just be like, hey, look, all these other ways that you do it, right? You like guide them there. That's what I do, is I help them see it for themselves. I'm never going to tell you the answer, even if I see it very clearly, because it's not my mind, it's yours. And so you have to get yourself there. I can just guide you. I'm kind of like the bumper things in bowling, right? I just keep you in your lane.
What's the journey look like for clients? Like, somehow I find you, or we meet at a networking event, or however your marketing hits, and they're like, yes, I need her. Hopefully they're ready.
Yeah.
Or you would assume that they're ready. Then what? Like a discovery
Mm-hmm.
call that goes into certain different packages?
Yeah. So I have one, as of right now, when it comes to mental performance coaching, I truly believe that like accountability and longevity, honestly, is the best way to find the results. And so I have a 6-month package. This is the one and only thing that I do private clients as of right now. And I will in the future turn it into a group coaching. But as of right now, I do private one-on-ones, and I only work with 6 clients at a time. And the purpose of that is so that I can really spend my energy with each of those clients in their business, in their mind. So when I first meet a client, I will, obviously talk to them ideally in person. I do connect a lot more in person, but wherever I do meet them, they find me on Instagram, they go to my website, and they can apply to my program's called the Mountain Mentality Program. And so they'll fill out an application, and I'll ask them a ton of questions about their mind, their thought process, their business, what's working, what's not working, what they feel is their biggest block. And from that application, I decide whether or not that application is a good fit. And we hop on a consult call, a discovery call, and I will do about 30-ish minutes of sample coaching. And so I offer them that in order to really solidify, because it is a big investment that they're going to be working with me, both time, energy, finances, like everything. They're in it for 6 months. Like that is the purpose. That is the goal. And my goal is to work myself out of a job. My goal is that at the end of the 6 months, if they feel like they still need me, I didn't do my job. If they want me, there's a difference, right? They want to keep working together. Absolutely. Let's keep working together. But if they feel like they need me, I didn't do a good job. And I know at the end of my 6 months that I work with them, that I give them all the tools that they need in order to coach themselves to the best of their abilities. And if they want to keep working together because they find it helpful, great, let's keep doing it. But so I'll do 30 minutes of a coaching session to give them a real understanding of what coaching looks like and what every call looks like for us. And then we'll spend about 30 minutes talking about the program and if it's a good fit. And we'll talk about, the logistics, the features, and obviously like payment plans and whatnot and start date and such. So yeah. And then we enroll.
Okay, so have you, straight out of college, did you go into your own coaching business or did you do something else before this?
I worked for the US Army as a mental performance coach for soldiers. Yeah. So right out of college, I took the summer off. I graduated my master's in 2019. And so jobs were still hiring. It was pre-COVID. And I took the summer off and then I got a job offer and it moved me out to Washington State. So originally, like I said, I'm from Florida. And that's what originally brought me to Washington is I worked at Joint Base Lewis McChord. So that's the base in just south of Tacoma, just south of Seattle, for anyone listening that's not from this area. But I got that job offer in fall of 2019. And I would say it was the most incredible job I could have gotten right out of school. They had such a good program as far as mentorship and supervision that I felt so supported and educationally challenged and application challenged. They would do such a good job of letting us run our own trainings with supervision your first year. And then they kind of let us run free and periodically would check in, higher ups would check in and watch your training, evaluate you. You could also absolutely like reach out for, my supervisor. I would be like, hey, can you come to this training? I would really like you to kind of give me feedback on how it runs. And so I would run a lot of trainings in a group setting in a lot of squad, so 20-ish people teams, and there'd be some type of leader, whether it's an officer or an enlisted, like a sergeant essentially is an enlisted, but they're leads, and then some kind of officer that may be in charge as well, and they kind of work together, bring me in, and I work with their team or squad in order to help them communicate better or be more attentive. Or I would go to the range with different companies or brigade level. Brigade level is like 600 plus people. And so there'd be, hundreds of people at this range, like shooting range, and they'd have to qualify their gun qualifications. And I would run trainings while we are there in order to help them level up their score. So like take them to that, because they did have to pass a certain amount, right? They had to get a certain percentage of correct shots, accurate shots, in order to pass. And if they didn't, obviously they kept going and going and going. And obviously the more you miss, the more high pressure it is. And so of like 40 shots, they have to, I believe it's like, I can't remember off the top of my head because now it's been over a year since I've been with the Army, but it's like in the like high 20s, low 30s for like pass, but like expert shot is like, 38, 39 out of 40 accurate shots. And so, each time that you miss one, the pressure's on to make the next one. And so working them through that, like having them regulate their breath and regulate their stress levels. And like sometimes they're physically moving, they're physically walking in order and still have to shoot correctly, accurately. And other times they're like stationary and have to shoot correctly, accurately. And yeah, we did all kinds of really cool trainings. I did active shooter stuff. I worked with the military police, and there was a training that actually, that was one of my favorite trainings because I was able to go in. They obviously had fake guns that essentially were paintball guns, but they were like the weight of handguns, as if like the military police would have. And then they had fake active shooters that would like come out, and they had like gear on, right? So they could get shot. And they literally would like run through these like abandoned schools. They had a school on base, and the like fire alarms were going off. Like it was like a haunted house, like strobe lights were going. People were like fake screaming, blood everywhere, like in order to simulate the real stress of an active shooter who got, actual victims and shot them. And that was one of the coolest experiences because we monitored their biometrics. And so we like had a heart rate monitor on them, and we were like watching them and saw where they spiked. The active shooter would like pop out, and we would literally see on the computer, on the iPad, like their heart rate spike and what were they doing to stay calm, because like the military police, the police in general, that's their job, is to not, like, as terrifying as it sounds, is to not freak out when you're getting shot at, in order to stay clear and think correctly and be able to make a decision. Is this a clean shot? Can I hit the active shooter correctly and accurately, and stay calm in the process while also not getting shot? And that was one of the coolest trainings that I ever did, was with the active shooter military police.
I feel physically nauseated right now. Like
I know.
Like my blood pressure goes like up just even thinking about that.
Yeah. It was really wild because I like went in behind them, and we had the so that we wouldn't get shot. We had, well, first of all, we had like face coverings, so just in case like they messed up and they let their stress get the best of them. Face coverings on, and then we were standing behind, like, have you seen the riot shields? We were standing behind the like riot shield, so that way if something did come through. And actually the officer that was escorting me through, so we were standing behind the military police, so there's two trainees that were standing in front of us, and they had no riot shields, right? They're coming in with gear on, but like, and no face coverings. Like they're like, this is how you would enter an active shooter, right? Is just whatever gear that you have on at the time, which most of the time is just a bulletproof vest. So that's all they had. That's all they were allowed to wear. And they went in, and we were behind them, face coverings on and riot shield. And the officer was standing in front of me. Obviously, ideally, the officer gets shot with the paintball gun and not me, the civilian. Even though I'm the like nerd behind the computer, like back there, right? And a paintball went rogue, and the active shooter shot at the police officers, and it missed the police officers and actually hit the officer that was escorting me like in the foot. And he like freaked out. It was so funny because like it's not his job to stay calm. He was just not expecting it. And he was like, I just got hit in the foot. And I was like, well, we got to keep going. So let's keep going. And it was cool though. It was very cool. It was very stressful, very stressful experience. And I was just watching their biometrics. So
that's really accelerated training for you.
Yeah.
And what you're doing now too, which is amazing. And what I'm hearing you say as well is you were a civilian, so you didn't have to be in ROTC or in the Army to have that job. They just hired you like any other job would.
Correct. Yeah. So I actually worked for a company called Magellan Federal. And then they were contracted.
I see their stuff all the time.
Yeah, they're
big
health
trucks.
Yeah, they're a health care company, and so they do everything from like doctors, nurses, down to mental health things, and kind of everything in between. So,
and then you were with them during COVID and all of that, which I'm sure complicated everything. So when did the flip this, I know you said you did yoga retreats and you had women there. These things, it's all the same. Like there is a pull through line,
Yeah.
but you're going from mostly men in the
Yeah.
military to high performing women.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a conscious decision through the yoga retreats,
Yeah.
or was it like not this, or kind of what was your mental model around everything?
Yeah, at first, like I said, I thought I was just gonna do like adventure and yoga retreats. And honestly, in the best way, I thought I was gonna leave behind the like scary, stressful, high performing world. And I was like, I just want to make people enjoy vacation and feel good and like go do fun things. And there's always a time and a place for that. I love personally, I've been on plenty of yoga retreats and adventure retreats that are that way, that are like, let me just enjoy, be present, and then I go home and that's it. But I just noticed myself start to do a lot more of that mental performance coaching on my retreats. So I was actually building my business, building the retreat side of it while I was still working for the Army. So my first ever retreat that I hosted was in 2021. I didn't leave my job until May of 2022. And so I had already planned all of my 2022 retreats. And I had 3-week-long retreats in 2022. And I knew that I had to leave my job before those retreats started because I literally did not have the PTO for it. And I was like, well, I guess this is it. This is when I'm going all in. And
Yeah, we love a forcing factor.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, absolutely. And so I knew I was going to leave the job, and I just started working more. Obviously, yoga retreats just in their basis does attract more women. I had men on my first 2 years of retreats. I had men on them, but when I had all women's retreats, I was like, this is a different energy. It's not better. It's not, like more vulnerable. Because honestly, like all the men that I did attract were very open men. There was still vulnerable conversations. There was still like tears. There was still like big, deep conversations and emotions. But when I had all women's retreats, and it wasn't until actually my last, I would say it was this last March that I was really like, okay, women's retreats are just something different. And then I decided to go all in on women only retreats. And then honestly, on my Baja business retreat, that's when I really was challenged, honestly, by my clients to rebrand into the mental performance coaching and really only work with business owners, because I noticed that while all of the clients that I had attracted were incredible humans and incredible people, they weren't necessarily high achievers. They were looking for a really cool, fun vacation. Love that. Like I said, you need that really cool, fun vacation. But the people that I enjoyed working with the most were the athletes that I worked with back in school, were the soldiers that came to me, not were voluntold to come to me, but sought me out and sought out my services and wanted to work with me. Those were the people that I wanted to work with. And business owners fall into that. They are high achievers. They are high demand. They are like the epitome of more, 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 and then burn themselves out. And there is, honestly, I think nothing harder than building a business or like training like an elite athlete. And I mean to the extent of like professional or Olympic level elite athlete. And honestly, I would put these CEOs on the same level as Olympians and professional athletes, because there is just so much high demand in their energy levels and outside criticism. That's such a big thing that a lot of people don't actually realize. And I think there's so many, one of my mentors once talked about NFL players and how ridiculous it is that they make literally millions of dollars, if not $1 billion over their, $1 billion over their career for sure, but like millions of dollars a year. And then he prompted us with the idea that like any time that you did a presentation, what if you had hundreds of millions of people watching you? Like, imagine any time you did any of your performances in business or whatever career you have, you're a teacher, you're a hairstylist, like you had hundreds of millions of people watching you and criticizing if you messed up.
Well, and not to mention like ESPN like pays people to comment on these people like
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I'm like, I'd always get offended for them. Like, who are you to just be like ranking these
Yeah.
people like and
Mm-hmm.
commenting on who they are as a person, and like it must be very stressful.
Yeah. And the same thing goes with business owners, right? Like if you look at the really incredible, well-known names, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Bob Iger, all of these in very well-known, even Gwyneth Paltrow, right? Like all of these well-known names, people literally criticize them so much. And like there's a reason they are making so much money. Is it always ethical? No. But like there's a reason that they're making so much money and they've worked really hard for it. There is not a doubt in my mind that any of those people that I mentioned aren't high achievers and aren't worse on themselves than their critics, And like business owners are at that level. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm feeling seen by you saying that. Because it is just a completely different life. And we've worked really hard to build our community over the past couple of years of women in business who really get what it's like to be a woman in business. And then you add kids, and it's a whole other layer to that as well, which I also, there's certainly pros and cons to children in general, but
Yeah.
especially as a business owner. And I find them motivating and also can be a little bit of balls and chains, which is a whole other conversation. But moms too, like that's the next level of like if you're a high performing mom business owner, when you're operating in these concentrated chunks of time, it's a completely wild experience. And I think for a lot of women, just hearing you say that they are essentially elite athletes in their own way, that could flip a switch for them and they could just go out and run and be like, fuck yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And I find with a lot of women, permission and
Mm-hmm.
being seen is a whole big part of the pie. So I'm curious from you if you're seeing trends in a lot of the women that you coach, like certain things come up consistently.
Yeah. I would say the biggest trend is prioritizing their clients over themselves. Like I have seen that with every single, like it didn't matter the revenue size of a business. I had a client that was in she was making her first $1,000, like very early business. And I have another client that the revenue is in the $200,000. And they prioritize answering emails, moving appointments around, meetings around in order to prioritize them. And like, for example, one of my clients literally changed her massage time. She was like, oh, self-care day. And then she was like, so I changed my massage time. I'm going to come in and I'm going to go work for this client and I'm going to get a massage another day. And I was like, no, stop that. We don't do that. It is not like, first of all, the analogy that I always use is like a doctor, right? You come in and as a patient, you come in and you're late to your appointment by like half an hour and they're like, sorry, can't see you. Sucks to suck. Here's when you can make your next appointment, and or probably here's a fee, right? For not showing up. You can make your next appointment in 2 months. Like that's it. That's what you missed today. Unless you're dying, we'll see you in 2 months. Get to the end of the line. And I think a lot of female entrepreneurs, they look at themselves so much in the beginning of their business. They establish the working in their business rather than on their business. And especially once they have a team under them that can actually do it, that can actually take those clients on for them or just take that meeting or just reschedule them, whatever it is, they don't step into the CEO role. They don't step into get to the back of the line. I'll see you in 2 months. Sorry that you missed your appointment. I hope everything's okay, and I'll see you next time. Like, you don't have to fee them if you don't want to. Do it if you do. Like, go for it. Your time's valuable. But prioritizing your clients over you literally just trains your clients that they can show up and do whatever they want with you. I've seen interior designers come in on weekends, and to them at first, they're like, oh, this makes sense. My clients work on the weekdays. Like, do you want to work on weekends? And they're like, no. I'm like, then don't work on the weekends and decide here's the time that you can show up. And if they really want to work with you, which this interior designer is incredibly talented, and so lots of people want to work with her. And she started seeing that her clients would schedule like a 2:00 on a Thursday, and she'd be like, perfect, see you then, I'll meet you at your house. And so she now doesn't work on, I think she's gotten to a point where she's not working on Sundays. I think some Saturdays she does block off time to go to houses and whatnot, job sites, but we're getting there. It's progress.
Yeah, and the holding the boundary
Yes.
is, I think, a huge thing, because I actually had that come up for me a ton. Like a year ago, I had healers, intuitives, people in my life telling me over and over that I need to work on my boundaries, and I was like, I have boundaries.
Mhm.
But what I realized over time was I was articulating my boundaries and then I would get pushed. And I
Mhm.
think this might be a uniquely female thing where, or not necessarily, but just something that was very persistent in my life, where I was getting resentful because the boundaries would get pushed. And then I would think, this isn't a hill I'm going to die on, or in my subconscious or something, they must know something that I don't, where I would allow them to invade my boundaries.
Mhm.
Then I would resent it. And then I would wonder why people keep telling me that I need to work on my boundaries, because what I would do is I would articulate it and then I would get pushed and I wouldn't hold it.
Yeah.
And ever since I got very, I would say almost hyper vigilant about it,
Mhm.
things have been a lot better for me overall.
Yeah, it's you do have to sway, like, awareness is a pendulum. Like, honestly, change is a pendulum. Like, if it's one way and you're like letting people essentially violate those boundaries, you got to go super hard in order to eventually come back in the middle and find that, like, okay, this is the middle ground. This is a boundary that I'm willing to kind of find some leeway on, and a boundary that I'm like, hard no. Right. And I think that it's definitely a lot more prevalent in females because we are just raised and taught. And sometimes, like, I don't want to fall back on, oh, it's just society, because we all have control. We are a part of society. And so it starts with us. It definitely starts with us being able to hold our own boundaries, and we can't control the people around us. In order to change the patriarchy and the beliefs about whatever, we have to start with us. And if we're not holding our boundaries, why should, extreme example, why should a male hold our boundaries, like, towards us, if we're not going to do it for ourselves? And we can't control what other people do. In a perfect world, I would love to be able to surround myself only with people who respect my boundaries. But I have to respect my own boundaries in order for people to then respect mine. And I use that a lot with my clients. Whatever beliefs they are seeing in their clients, like the belief that they can reschedule, the belief they can't afford your services, the belief that your offer isn't the exact fit for them, is usually, and not usually, like 98% of the time, it's your own beliefs that you're projecting onto them. Like, if your clients continue to if you see a pattern where they continue to say, I need to reschedule, why is that happening? Because you believe they can reschedule, because you're letting them reschedule. And same thing with, like, the money side of things. If you're seeing people not book you because they can't afford you, you are likely projecting that in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's graspiness in the, like, hey, your invoice isn't filled. Like, why is it not filled? It's due tomorrow. Versus, like, going straight into customer service mode of, like, yeah, they'll fulfill their invoice. Let's start the onboarding process. Like, I trust that they're going to, don't go to the extreme by any means if you're like, giving them access. Let's say you're in a course, give them access to your course before they paid, but you can start an onboarding process of whatever your onboarding is. And that kind of thing, like trusting the journey, the process, the client, that whatever they said is what they mean.
Yeah, your mindset stuff is so exciting because there's so much that's unseen that's got to be hard for people as they're challenging their own beliefs and becoming aware of what they're unaware of. And they have to really trust you in that process of getting them there to these things that are unseen, because you're saying you're a mirror.
Yeah.
And you're making decisions and holding to that decision when they never have before has got to be a whole act of faith for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So much of coaching, what I love about being that third party is them showing them showing what their brain is doing. Like I basically like lay out the pieces of their brain, and I'm like, and their thoughts and their beliefs. And I'm like, what do we want to keep? What do we want to get rid of? And how can we do that? And that's a huge difference between like a coach and a mentor. I'm a coach that helps, like I said, like I'm the bumpers on the side of a bowling alley, like I'm here to help you, guide you. You find your own strategies. And through mental performance coaching, you can make any strategy work for you, rather than a mentor, which essentially just shows you how they found success.
Right. Like, here's how I did it,
which is great to learn from. But what's going to work for Whitney is not going to work for me. What's going to work for Emily is not going to work for Whitney, right? Like, that can be a starting point and you can start to replicate. But like, if you wrote exactly what Whitney does in her posts, it's not going to work for you, right?
Yeah.
And even if you apply it to your niche, it's not going to work because it's not you. And that's what coaching comes in, is like you come out. Your skills and your strengths and your values come out in your strategies.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, let's try to be rapid. I could like listen to you talk about all these things and nerd out about so much.
I love it.
For so long. I'm feeling in my heart very excited.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you proudest of in your business right now?
I changed my offer, changed my business in less than 4 months ago, and I'm already seeing like results of it happening. I can tell that like this is the most aligned thing that I could have done, is make this pivot, and it's proving in the results.
Well, I've been searching for a retreat, and I'm saying this on every episode with people who do retreats, and it has to be bougie though, Karina. I have kids. I don't share rooms.
You need to look at Baja.
Okay. I do only fancy things, and if I'm with high performers and I can be in my own energy, then I would be intrigued by a retreat.
I love it.
I'll say that. Tell us about a book you read or a podcast you listened to recently that changed the way you're thinking about your life or your business.
I would say one of my favorite books that I've read is Stealing Fire. I can't remember who it's by right now, but Stealing Fire, and it talks about like the flow state. And one of the biggest parts of the book really focuses on how like essentially tech people out of Silicon Valley in California go to Burning Man and how that helps them be in their most creative flow state. And you don't need drugs or psychedelics or anything like that. Like, they use art and music in order to enhance a like natural flow state and natural high, essentially, to unlock like all the different areas of the brain. And I want to go to Burning Man because of it. Like, sober, go to Burning Man and just experience the flow state that it induces.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've heard about Burning Man in a few different places, so it's coming up for me, which means I need to investigate it further.
Yes.
I know what it is, but just like, oh, I never thought I would go to Burning Man.
I cannot festival, but yeah, more power to you.
Yeah.
It's like the festival of all festivals, because it's like 7 days in the desert. Nothing, you have to bring your own water in, bring your own food in. The only thing you can buy is coffee and ice. That is the only thing you can buy there. So
no, thank you. At least they gave you coffee. What would your last meal be?
My last meal? Spiny lobster from Florida in the Atlantic.
I love this specificity.
Really good buttery, sour creamy mashed potatoes with the skin in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yum.
Okay. Great choice.
I'm so hungry now. That sounds so
I'm going
good.
to skip one in lieu of what I just texted to Emily. So, like, audience, we have a new question that was inspired by a book I just finished by Rainn Wilson. What is lighting you up lately?
I think the mountains always light me up, but like more recently, it's been the people that I've been going on the mountain trips with. I've been doing a lot of backpacking recently in all female groups. Would have been just absolutely incredible, and I love it. I just spent this last weekend with a good business friend of mine, and actually she's a client of mine and I'm a client of hers. And we just spent 48 hours in the wilderness, no cell service, and it was just incredible. And we talked business and life and siblings and love and romance and all the things in between, and it was just so more than I could have asked for. Amazing.
Good.
I love that. Okay, new question. Last one. You're the perfect person to have as the first person to answer this question. What's one life experience everyone should have?
Summit a mountain. And that can be a metaphorical mountain. Like, but I also believe that you should do it physically as well. But it can be a metaphorical mountain as well. I just mean do something really fucking hard. Do something incredibly hard and get really uncomfortable. And physically, like, again, it doesn't have to be a physical mountain in order to physically get uncomfortable. You have to be okay with regulating the like hyperactivity in your body when you get really stressed out, and to let yourself profusely sweat, your heart rate spike, your stomach feel like you're going to throw up, your muscles feel fatigued, your brain is going a million miles an hour, or there's nothing happening in your brain at all, and your emotions are all over. And then you get to the top and you're like, or you accomplish the goal and you're like, I did it. And it's an overwhelming sense of accomplishment and gratitude and strength and confidence and empowerment and resilience. Like all of those things literally put evidence in your brain and evidence in your life that you can do hard things. And so it just means that's why my program is called Mountain Mentality. Every time you summit a mountain, accomplish a goal, you know that you can do it again. You've already done it. Like you could go back and be like, yeah, I did that hike. I can do it again. I already did it.
Yeah.
Right? Literal evidence that it's done. And the same thing with goals. If you've already hit 5K, you can do 5K again. Right? So summit a mountain.
All right, Karina, you got us all fired up. Where can people find you?
The easiest way is on Instagram at True Adventure Co. And you can also find my website, trueadventurecollective.com. And you can check out on the website up in the top, it'll say mental performance coaching, and to really look at the program and apply for my program. I only work with 6 clients at a time. As of right now, I do have 3 openings that will be open until they are filled. And so I just wrapped up a few clients in the last couple months. And so I will be having spots open. So if you're interested, you can absolutely apply. Go to trueadventurecollective.com, hit the mental performance coaching. You can apply, and then I'll set up that sample call with you, that consult call, and we can get started.
Awesome. This has been such a great conversation, Karina. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
We're excited too. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Coast, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.